It's that time again, everyone. Oh my goodness. Welcome back to Leveling Up Podcast. I'm so excited to be here. We are going to talk about how to power up your story. And what that means for you is you get to connect with my friend, Sally Wurr. She is a delightful entrepreneur, knows not just how to build a personal brand, but be able to really put a lot of power behind it. She's got multiple books out there, and I'm so excited to have a conversation with her today. We've got a fun acronym for our talking points today too, POWER. And for you to actually know what that's about, you have to stick all the way to the end. So buckle up because it's going to be a delightful experience. So glad that you're here, Sally. Thank you for coming and participating with us on the Leveling Up Podcast.
I need a cowbell. I love that. Great energy. Yes, I am thrilled to be here. Absolutely thrilled to be here.
Can you hear me? Check. There we are.
I was like, what?
All right, we're in the area, in the room. So glad that we're here. Sally, tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, why you want to power up people's stories and share people how to design their life.
You know, I was given a nickname a while back called the Storm Whisperer. I'm going, Storm Whisperer. Like and it really does fit. It does fit. I have a unique way of taking the chaos or the storms that show up on our doorsteps and transform the verbiage into something that's a little bit more positive and palatable, right? Because we all have stuff that we have to deal with that shows up and we don't plan for it, right? It just is there. And how do we react to it, right? I don't react negatively. I always react, okay, so what am I supposed to learn from this and how am I supposed to figure it out? So they gave me the name the Storm Whisperer because I take that chaos and switch it into clarity. And I think that's what the lesson that a lot of people haven't learned. People just were never taught it, didn't have it, whatever. And so I share what I've learned in the hopes that it helps other people reconnect with a positive, because every negative has a positive.
Yeah, there's opposites in all things. I love it. Today, as we are going through these few different talking points, we're going to be talking about power and how to power your story. And what that means for you is when you are able to empower yourself to share meaningful experiences, testimonies, different ways that you can say, this is what I've experienced, or this is what you've experienced, and let me package it so that you can get benefit from it. You're going to be able to see so much more clearly what storytelling will do for you in your life, in your business, in your family, and all these different aspects. I'm so excited to get there with you. Now, this first one with positioning is where I want to go with this. So how did you, Sally, be able to position yourself as an authority and an expert in your field? And talk to us about what that's like to make sure you've got the right position with your story, because this is the P in power. Go ahead.
First off, experience, right?
Yes.
I've lived long enough to experience enough things and to learn from them, right? It's one thing to have experience and keep redoing the same behaviors, but I learn from them. I'm not saying I don't repeat, but very seldom do I repeat. So I think that experience is certainly the greatest way. And the second thing is I am willing to share my experiences. And as ugly and sad as many of them have been, I find that a lot of people are afraid to share theirs, right? They're afraid they're going to be judged. They're afraid that someone's going to think that's a pity party, whatever. We all have our pity parties. Just try to keep them private.
Private pity party. Yeah.
Private pity parties. Nobody wants to go to a pity party. They'll be with you in those moments, but they don't want to stick around for very long. And so I think that those are the things that I bring as far as the power is that life's greatest storms truly reconnect us with our power and our legacy and all the things that go about it. And so I think that when you hit a storm head on and you figure out what you're supposed to be learning from it, you get a deeper meaning of who you are and where you need to be. And that's sadly my biggest, or the biggest storm I've had, obviously, was the loss of my husband. And, you know, when I was given the statistic the other day that there are 2,800 people that become widowers every single day. That number
2,800 people.
was outstanding to me, right? That, I mean, that's clearly not all my stories, but that's one of my bigger ones. And I just, until I wrote my first trilogy, right? My second, third, and fourth books, Power of Legacy, Power of Awakening, Power of Purpose, Power of Legacy. Power of Awakening was actually my journaling during that time of my husband's illness. And then the beyond of that. And he got sick in March of 2020. That's when COVID first started. So not only did he get sick and die 4 months later, in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, and there were no roads to follow. There were no roads to follow. I had to make my own roads. And so that created this internal compass that turned that chaos and that gut-wrenching stuff into something that I hope, it's my hope to help other people learn from what I've learned. And the book Power of Awakening was written from that journal, and what steps I had to teach myself that I hadn't learned, because there was nothing out there for me to, and it's not like you can have coffee with friends. It's COVID. Nobody was seeing anybody, right? Nobody was seeing anybody. I was truly on that island by myself, and I felt every single second of it. And so when the authority comes from life and figuring things out along the way until I could find enough people to learn other things from. And they bless them, they were willing to share what they learned. But power comes from within. And positioning yourself with other people that are willing to share what they know, because wisdom's built on other wisdom.
I love that. One of the things that I've discovered with this idea of positioning is, if you have something that is truly of value for somebody else, will solve a problem, will make it so they can avoid some pain or get what they want and get some pleasure from whatever that experience is. When you share that piece of value, you are an expert. You can be a reporter, or you can be the person that did the thing. Both of those positionings are expert authority positions. As a writer, you get to be an authority, an author. And that's part of this. You've become an authority in your space because you position yourself as someone that has been there and done that. And then you also reported on the experience, saying, hey, this is what I learned. I don't know everything, but this is what my experience is. And that's beautiful. So talk to us about how you were able to own your story, because ownership of your own personal copyrighted material is so important. You've got multiple books out there. How is owning your story and owning actual physical books helpful to build your personal brand and really empower your story?
First of all, people are impacted by the fact that I'm an author, right? I mean, because I have two companies. I have this, and I also run another company that I've had for 30 plus years. But I think having the books gave me authority, right? Because said, you actually wrote a book. I said, I'm at, 4 books of my own, 15 that I've collaborated with, and I'm working on my 5th book right now, which I think is going to have the greatest impact. And that's called The Journey Beyond Goodbye. And it's truly not just about being a widower or widower. It's really about any time that we have a loss or grief, whether it be loss of a job, loss of a child, loss of a parent, any kind of, there's so many losses out there.
Yeah.
There's just so many losses out there. So how do we get beyond that? How do we get beyond that? And so when we're looking at ownership, I think my books give me the authority that I actually have the wisdom to write it down and actually publish it and get on stages and share it. I'm a very emotional, impactful storyteller. And generally you put me in front of people and they just sit there and they go, wow, what was that? Because I want to bring them in, right? I want to bring them in. I want them to feel it. I want them to experience it. And I want them to connect with something that's going on in their life. And storms of life, chaos, we can all relate to in some way, shape, or form.
That's a beautiful way to position yourself as an owner of that story. Writing books is one thing, and then publishing the book. Book's never technically done, guys. I know this because I'm an author as well, Storyhook Method.
Yeah.
It's just published, and it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be some stuff that you want to tweak, but that's why you have different versions that you can publish later. You have to get your story out there. One of the ways that I do that with my guests and different people is I use this podcast as a platform to share those meaningful experiences and own them in a way that you're like, hey, this isn't going to be perfect, but it's going to be something that will impact you if you actually take action on it. Now, this next thing is so important when we're powering up your story, is to make sure that your story is worthwhile, that it is truly something that's valuable. Because there's a lot of experiences we have that wouldn't make it into a play. They're just kind of boring. And then there are some of those crucial moments that if we are willing to dig deep, do the story mining to say, this is something that totally transformed my life. And then you polish those up. It's almost like a jeweler being able to find a diamond in the rough and polish all those facets to make it shine. That's what great storytelling and great connecting your powerful story to others will do for you. Is it allows you to share what's most of worth to you and give it to somebody else. So what are your thoughts on that, Sally? How to find a worthwhile story and how to share it?
The word worth, I actually have a play on my last name. W-U-R. Are you Wurr it? I mean, yes. I love my last name. It's my married last name, but I have more fun with worth it than, the Wurr effect we'll get into quickly here. But what I like to think is whenever I get on any stage, whether it be a podcast, in live, whatever, or even just a group of people, is that I feel like I bring enough wisdom to the conversation that most people listen. Yes. But truly, whether they listen or not is on them. It's not on me. I am the messenger. Yeah. And I've been questioned enough times after I've spoken from people that said, I felt you were just talking to me. What you said resonated so deeply with me, I thought I was the only person in the room. And that's because I have an innate ability to verbalize things that sometimes I don't even know where they come from, right? It's a God-given thing. But I verbalize things that just in my heart says they need to be said. I was at a meeting the other day, and I happened to, it was with a widow, and she was saying how she always disliked that people said, well, he's in a better place. She's like, no, he's not in a better place. If he were in a better place, he'd be here. And I'm saying, I said, well, yeah, I get that. But maybe if you think about the fact that he's in his glory, he's in his glory now, and he's looking down on you and your family members and thinking, this is what I helped create. And I am just absolutely loving every minute of it. And it was like a light bulb went off, and she just went, that's it. And so I had the opportunity to talk to her the next day, and I said, so out of curiosity, I said, did your husband ever use the word glory? Because I never use the word glory. I don't know where it came from. It just was what I needed to say. And she says he used it all the time. And she says, that's why it touched me so much, because that's exactly something that he would say.
That's beautiful.
So that's the beauty of those of us that communicate and understand the emotional level that people are at when the storms of life hit us, whatever they are, is having that emotional.
This analogy of the storms of life, because some storms are absolutely necessary and beautiful because they give us all this rain. And then sometimes you're like, this is a bitter snowstorm. There's wind coming sideways. I feel like I'm getting pelted with hail, and it is rough to get through. But all of those will build experience for us and provide an opportunity for learning. It sounds like you have another idea.
Yeah, well, because sometimes it's those moments that break us the largest, that actually open us up and wake us up to what our true potential is. Yeah. I wouldn't be here today doing what I'm doing had I not lost my husband, right? mean, I would have been speaking on stages, but I wouldn't have written all these books and been given all these opportunities had that storm not arrived and been delivered the way that it was delivered in our lives. Absolutely. So I feel as though that moment for me is what I call the Wurr effect. And it's the play on my last name, W-U-R-R. It's wake up, uncover, reflect, and rise. And Beautiful. So I teach people how to wake themselves up with whatever situation they're in, uncover who you are and where you feel you should be, then step back and reflect on that, because that's where the magic happens, right? You go, holy moly, I reread my books and I go, wow, I was pretty smart there. Why didn't I use that? And then to rise. And when one rises, they all rise, right? And so I try to be a light in a room, especially when you're in the darker moments. And if you can come in and be a light and lift people, then we just all win at certain levels. But you have to get there.
That's a great way to position this. You are that light. And if it's something that is worthwhile in your life, even if you had to experience it in a dark time, because you shared it, you are providing that light for somebody else. And a lot of times when you shine light in a dark space, they can say, oh, I can now see clearly that I don't want to go down that way. Thank you for making it easy for me to make a different choice. I think that's those warnings in those stories that are so valuable. So thanks for sharing that. This next section I really think is important, because it's not just sharing a great story, it's making sure you enroll the audience and engage them. If you are able to share a powerful story, but literally nobody listens because you didn't gather attention, I feel like you're doing your audience a disservice, and also you're not really making the impact that you want. So talk to us about how you have enrolled people into your message, into your thought process, and help them understand what's worthy, right?
Exactly.
That's what you are worthy.
You're worthy. I think truly, I want people to feel like they're inside the story. So I use a lot of colorful languages. I talk about the lake of life, right? And so I take my audience on this lake of life journey where they're standing before this beautiful, crystal clear, smooth lake. And they hear the trees around them with the wind whooshing through the trees and the birds chirping from branch to branch. And they pick up a stone and they skip it across the water as the wildflowers at their feet are wafting, So you give them this picture that they can be there at that shoreline with you. And as they skip that rock across the lake, it creates those ripples in life, good, bad, or ugly. And try to envelop them in that story and make them understand that sometimes those ripples are really beautiful and powerful, and they never know where they're going to stop because they go from person to person to person. They tweak a little bit. And then sometimes in life, the rock, instead of it skimming across that surface, goes kerplunk. And it goes down that deep, dark abyss as it's spiraling to the bottom of this dirty lake. That's when we find ourselves in like the worst place possible for a storm, right? That's where the pity parties lie. And that's not to begrudge them. We all have to deal with whatever we got to deal with. But it's understanding that you don't drown. I'm trying to think of who the author was of this quote. You don't drown from falling into the lake. You drown by staying there. Yeah. So whatever we can do as a society, or friends can do, or you can do for yourself to lift yourself back up and start creating those ripples again, that's the important part. But it's sharing stories that people can actually see themselves inside of. And excuse me, it's all about the verbiage. And I mean, I hope that you and your audience both heard the wind whipping through the trees and the birds chirping, and it's the silent skip of that rock across that lake or that ugly kerplunk. I want people to feel. So as soon as you open up that heart and you feel something, everything else gets fed into it.
That's beautiful. This last section that comes to mind with this idea of power, where we position ourselves in the best light possible, we own this story, and then we make sure that they are of worth. We enroll our audience in it. This last section is how you build reputation, not just with all of your own experience, but with consistently delivering at a high level, something that people can use, something that is meaningful, and a message that matters. So how have you been able to build your reputation? It could be building reviews. It could be building your opportunities. How do people see you? All these different ideas of making sure that you're building your reputation. Go ahead.
Being among people that know you and those that don't know you, because other people have gotten me where I'm at. I didn't get here by myself. And finding people like yourself and other people that are podcasters that bring people on stages, that put me in front of groups of people for whatever reason, it's that brings credibility. It's other people's audiences that I've been blessed to be brought into that help me with the credibility. I just started this collaboration with this new widowers group that's going nationwide. It's called Tomorrow Sunrise. It was because she was asking for widows to be on her podcast. I said, hey, I might be a good fit. You think? And so it's allowing other people to talk about me like you did in the opening. I mean, I felt so good. Yeah, we all rise. So that's been the biggest help for me, is being on with other people and on their stages, and all of us working together, because I'm going to let people know that I'm on your podcast, and it's going to be broadcast everywhere. And so I want it to drive people to you. I want it to be a win-win for everybody, right? I want you to get more listeners. I want more listeners. We want to impact people in the best way possible. And your Leveling Up podcast helps do that, because people might not know who I am had it not been for you.
That's great. One of the things that I've noticed, I ask my guests at the end of pretty much every podcast, because it's so important to hear why people do what they do. Talk to us about, you got the invitation to come on the podcast. Why did this choice of coming and appearing on the podcast matter to you? Why is this helpful? And why do people even want to listen to the Leveling Up podcast? And to me, and you know about my story hook method, you bought my book, you've gone through it. So talk to us about why that matters.
I have a great emotional connection to people. Mm-hmm. And I instinctively know who I will work well with and who I won't. And you just have that energy, right? Matching energy matches energy. And we both have that. And so, as I told you, I mentioned earlier, you and I could talk about the gray water and still make it fascinating, right? Because we're connected, right? And so that's, for me, it was your energy and your willingness to, well, even when I met you, you kind of got up out of your chair and you sat to the next chair and said, have a seat, let's talk. Nobody stops and does that anymore. Who are you? Why should I know you? And I was intrigued, because I felt the same way about you. I was the MC that night for a gala, and I had just literally ran out to my car to get my clothing for the evening, was running back in, and there you were, and there was nobody around you. And I had been in your class. I said, I want your book. Tell me about you. And 20 minutes later, it happened. And that's how things are supposed to happen. It's not happenstance that I happened to have gone at that particular time out to my car and run back in, and there was nobody around you, and there'd been people around you constantly, couldn't get close to your table. So moments in time. And you and I both taking that moment in time to have a quick conversation.
That's beautiful.
That's
when you look at those magic moments, just like you brought up, sometimes you make an indelible impression on someone because you opened up enough to hear their story. And I love being able to hear about how you've been able to take this challenging, tragic experience of losing your husband and be able to look, how can I turn this into a benefit for others? Yeah. Beautiful. And it's heart-wrenching, and also a way to make it so that others can connect with you and empathize. Because I haven't lost my wife, thank goodness, but
don't want you to.
I want those people that have lost their spouses to be able to realize that they don't have to go through that alone anymore. There are other resources, and you're a great resource for them.
Yeah.
So thank you for putting the effort out there to build a powerful story that's meaningful and something that people can take action on. I think that's the biggest thing that I want to take away from this conversation is it's not just building your own authority. It's now that I have the stage, now that I have something that's powerful to share with others, you have to open your mouth and actually do it. And that's what you're doing today. Any final thoughts before we close this out? I wanted to make sure you have a moment to share that part that's on your heart and anything that comes to mind. You're like, hey, I want to leave this with the audience. This is why it matters.
You know, one of the platforms I've always used is the word change. Mm-hmm. And change is a verb. And the only way verbs work is with action. So if you need to change, it is an action verb, and you need to do something other than what you're doing if you want a different outcome. Because my husband passing away is only one of my many stories. It wasn't. I don't want to say it's the one that broke me, because it clearly didn't break me. But I get the wisdom from other storms prior to that, right? And so I don't want to just focus on I'm a widow. I am, and that's one of my stories. But there's so much more out there that people turn a blind eye to instead of hitting it head on. And I think that they just need to hit it head on. Absolutely. It's the only way to get through it.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
To close out, guys, I just want to say thank you one more time, Sally, for being on, sharing your worthwhile experiences. I love that. That's so.
You're never gonna.
I'm never gonna hear that word the same, and I love it. Thank you for that. Guys, if you haven't been able to pick up the book Story Hook Method, feel free to do so. Right up here in the corner, I have a cute little QR code that you can scan, be able to grab the book. Sally, why do you feel like the Story Hook Method was empowering for you? I know you got to experience me live in person, talking through it. Tell me, why was this so helpful?
It's because you give worthwhile information, golden nuggets throughout the entire book about how you can tweak portions. You got the basics, but how do you tweak different portions to get more impact? And the more impact you have, the bigger your audience becomes. So I just love that I call it the golden filled nugget book, because there's so many golden moments within it that I call it the 1/4 of an inch club. You only have to change 1/4 of an inch to make a huge impact. And so your book has that, and seeing you in person was just phenomenal, just dynamic. And
thank you so much.
I appreciate that. I appreciate people that put their lives into books that help change the trajectory that people are on. And that's Absolutely. What you do.
And I appreciate that so much for not only reading the book, but really experiencing it in person too. I'm so grateful to have you in the audience. And where can people go to find you and hear a little bit more about your books? Because I know you've got a handful of them and you have a great website. So tell them where to go.
Yeah, they can go to my website, sallywurr.com. They can, obviously email me at sallywurr@gmail.com. My first and last name, right? Sally Wurr. I'm pretty much everywhere. That you just Google that name and it's going to tell you a whole lot of information. But bottom line is I just I like helping people get some clarity within the chaos.
I love it. And those storms of life that you want to help them weather. So thanks again for being here, sharing great insight. Go to sallywurr.com to get more information. Buy your books. It's going to be a great experience for you, especially if you know someone that is a widow or a recent widower. Please let them know this is a great resource for them. So I really appreciate you, Sally. We'll see you guys again next time on Leveling Up Podcast, and God bless. We'll see you.